Hi, welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. I'm Ruben and this is my review for Netflix's original series, The Haunting of Hill House. The Haunting of Hill House is created and directed by Mike Flanagan, the same creative genius that brought us the Stephen King short story adaptation Gerald's Game. This is another Netflix original series with 10 episodes, all ranging from about the 50-minute mark to just under an hour long. The Haunting of Hill House is a modern reimagining of Shirley Jackson's novel with the same name. The story is about 5 siblings who grew up in the haunted house in America. Now adults, they've been reunited by the suicide of their youngest sister, which forces them to finally confront the ghosts of their past, some of which are in their minds, and some of which may in fact be real. I was interested in this back when I reviewed Gerald's Game. What I saw from Mike Flanagan in that film had me excited to see what he could do with a supernatural character-driven story. Even though Gerald's Game didn't have much in the way of supernatural, the atmosphere and tension he created was palpable. The way The Haunting of Hill House has been structured works well for the way the story is told. It's very It-like in creation. There are 2 sets of actors and actresses. You have the young family, in which you see how the house haunts and affects the children and parents, and then we have the older group, the adult versions of the children. Here we see what happened to them in Hill House, what has happened to them in the future, and how the effects of what has happened to them as children and it affects them in the future, and we get to see that timeline.
Hill House.
These 2 timeline lifetimes intersect in each episode as the story unfolds and shows you what's happening, what's still happening, and what might happen.
You don't have to worry now.
It's a great way to tell a storyline in multiple timelines, and it really works here. Well, I feel like it really works here. And that's just the beginning of the intersecting, because most of the time each episode will follow a sibling in both timelines, and then it will link back to the overarching storyline. But it never gets confusing, which is good. You understand where it's going, but at the same time it keeps you on your toes. This is down to the storytelling in direction, editing and scoring. The combinations of each episode linking into each storyline with meticulously crafted tensions in music and tone is a thing of beauty, and I loved it. They know when to jump into the next scene and when to leave out music. They know when to do a jump cut or to leave a shot wide. The attention to detail is fantastic. Obviously, even with the greatest director, editors and cinematographers, your series of film would be nothing without some damn good talent. Mike Flanagan, much like Tim Burton, seems to have a crew and cast that he really enjoys working with now. In fact, 2 of the main cast from Gerald's Game, Carla Gugino,
Of course I'd wake you.
and Henry Thomas, are cast as the young parents in this series of the family that lives in Hill House. And I really feel like they lucked out here with their cast.
I dream.
I'm not going to go and list all the names now. Suffice to say that I've just touched on some of the pool of the talent that's in this series. The way the series is structured, it would show very quickly if there was a weak link in the acting. Jumping from child to adult versions of a particular character a number of times in each episode could be especially jarring for those actors that did not carry across the traits of the characters they were portraying. But there is never anything like that. Not once was I taken out of the moment because we changed timelines. The acting of both sides is excellent. I think they found the perfect union here of young and old versions of these characters. The casting is spot on. In Gerald's Game, there was this shadow that looked like a face, but you weren't sure that it was a face in the background, and you kept staring at it until, even if it wasn't a face, it became a face because your brain made it a face.
Not real. You're not real.
This technique is used a lot in this series. You can watch a scene and catch something in the corner. The music or character on screen won't give any indication sometimes that something is even there. And it's a technique that they use throughout the episodes that really helps to build tension cleverly. Of course, this is a horror series and there's bound to be some of those traditional things you'd come to expect to have in a horror series. But what I can say, for the most part, it pushes the boundaries of those things. It takes what you'd expect to be the norm and then twists them. But one of the things it doesn't twist is the jump scares. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a scaredy cat. If I'm watching something scary, I'll use my dog to hide behind. But jump scares can get old fast. There are quite a few in this series. But if you take the structure of the series and the superb editing and add in those jump scares, they work for the most part. I do, however, personally feel that the tension building through the plot and character development worked much better in this series. And you could have not had the jump scares and it would still be really scary. And talking about pushing the boundaries, I'm always amazed when I see new things in films. I feel like sometimes it's almost like we've got nothing new to show, that we get so much of the same being turned out from Hollywood and around the world. So it's really good when I see something fresh. I think it was in episode 6 that I watched in awe at some of the filmmaking techniques. I have some personal experience in knowing how long it takes to prepare just a few minutes of Steadicam shots with multiple characters in those shots. It can sometimes take hours, sometimes days, depending on what you're doing. Episode 6 was shot, as far as I can tell, mostly on Steadicam. There are cuts, of course, but the creativity of what they did in this episode is something to behold. The way they used the Steadicam is just, I can't wait for you to see it. It's my favorite episode.
From a dream like that?
Honestly, this series was well executed. It is scary, but only because you really care about what happens to the characters. You'll be emotionally entangled and willing them to see what you see. You want to warn them, to help them, and that for me is a massive compliment to the series. If you're that engaged and you're like, don't do that, don't go in there. I for one can't wait to see what Mike Flanagan will do next with Netflix. So I'm giving my first A+. It isn't perfect, but I don't know anything that actually is. There's always room for improvement. This had everything I wanted from a horror TV series. It's great storytelling, great adventure, and really pulls you into those characters, so it gets an A+. Thanks so much for watching my review of The Haunting of Hill House. I hope you found it informative. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. My first horror fantasy adventure novel is out now. It's called Phaseborn, and I would love it if you would check it out. I'll leave a link the link below. It's in the vein of Harry Potter meets Narnia meets Divergent, and don't forget, live long and Tuesday.